Pour some flour by the bed and go away for a day. That's what my neighbor whispered to me on the porch, like he was handing over a secret instead of a recipe. My name is Mark Halstead. I'm 36 years old, and until 3 months ago, my biggest worry was whether the lawn needed mowing before Sunday. Now my wife hasn't walked in 92 days. Lena used to fill a room just by laughing. Now she barely fills the bed. When I told the neighbor I hadn't slept properly in weeks, that something about the house felt wrong, he didn't laugh. He just leaned closer and said it again. Flour. By the bed. Leave for a day. I didn't believe him. But I did it anyway. Before I left the next morning, I stood in our bedroom holding a paper bag from the pantry. The room smelled like antiseptic and lavender lotion. Machines hummed softly beside Lena's nightstand. She stared at the ceiling like she was listening to something I couldn't hear. I poured a thin white line around the base of her bed. It looked ridiculous. Paranoid. Desperate. Then I drove aimlessly for hours, guilt clawing at my chest. When I came home that night, the house felt colder than it should have. I walked into our bedroom. And when I flipped on the light, I stopped breathing. The flour wasn't where I left it. Not exactly. The thin white border I had poured around Lena's bed was disturbed, broken in 2 places near the footboard. Not smudged like a careless shoe had stepped through it. Not scattered like air from the vent had blown it. Pressed. Indented. 2 faint shapes. Parallel. Almost like palms. My stomach tightened. The window was locked. I checked it twice. The bedroom door had been closed when I left and still was. No footprints leading to the hallway. No trail out. Just those 2 impressions right where no one should have been standing. I stepped closer, crouching. The room smelled different. Not lavender. Something metallic. Subtle but there. Like the scent after you bite your lip too hard. Behind me, Lena's breathing machine hummed steadily. She hadn't moved in weeks. Not since the stroke. Doctors called it non-responsive wakefulness. Her eyes open, her body still. Suspended somewhere I couldn't reach. I swallowed hard and turned toward her. Her eyes weren't fixed on the ceiling anymore. They were pointed downward. At the floor. At the flour. At me. For 3 months she hadn't tracked movement. Not even when I waved my hand in front of her face. But now her pupils shifted, slowly, deliberately, and settled on mine. And for the first time since the hospital, she blinked. What? Slow. Intentional. I froze. Lena? My voice cracked like it hadn't been used in days. Her eyes stayed on mine. Not drifting. Not vacant. Focused. I stepped closer to the bed, careful not to disturb the flour. The indents stared back at me like evidence waiting to be interpreted. My pulse thudded in my ears. Can you hear me? I whispered. Nothing. The machine kept its steady rhythm. The overhead light buzzed faintly. Outside, a car passed, tires hissing on pavement. Everything normal. Too normal. Then her fingers twitched. Not a reflex. Not random. Her right hand tightened slightly against the sheet as if testing gravity. My breath caught in my throat. Lena, if you can hear me, blink twice. Pause. Then, 1 blink. Another. I staggered back a step, nearly stepping into the broken flour line. My chest felt like it was splitting open. You've been in there this whole time? I asked, my voice shaking. You've been awake? Her lips parted. No sound came out, but they moved. I leaned in closer, heart hammering. She tried again. Air rasped against dry vocal cords. Barely a whisper. Don't sleep. The words were thin, fragile, but real. And then her eyes shifted past me, toward the bedroom doorway. Something in her expression changed. Fear. And slowly, very slowly, the hallway light flicked off. The hallway went dark with a soft, deliberate click. I didn't move. The bedroom light was still on above us, humming faintly, casting sharp shadows against the walls. But beyond the doorway, nothing. Just black. Mark, Lena breathed, her voice scraping like paper dragged across concrete. I'm here, I whispered, forcing my legs to stay steady. You're okay. But she wasn't looking at me anymore. She was staring into the hallway. Her fingers tightened around mine with surprising strength, not the grip of someone barely alive but someone terrified. Her nails dug into my skin. Don't let it stand there, she murmured. Every hair on my arms rose. I told myself it was stress, grief, sleep deprivation. 92 days of hospital monitors and whispered prognosis had rewired my brain. That's all this was. I stepped toward the doorway, forcing air into my lungs. Hello? I called, hating how small my voice sounded. No answer. I reached for the hallway switch and flicked it back on. The light came alive instantly. The hallway was empty. Family photos lined the walls. Lena laughing at the beach, our dog in the backyard, me squinting at a grill that never worked right. Ordinary memories staring back at me. But one thing wasn't ordinary. At the threshold of the bedroom, just inside the doorway, there was Flower. A thin white footprint, facing inward, as if something had stepped into the room and never stepped back out. I stared at the footprint until my eyes watered. It wasn't large, not exaggerated, just human-sized. The arch visible, the heel defined. Flower pressed deeper near the toes like weight had shifted forward, facing inward, toward Lena. My heart hammered so loudly I could feel it in my throat. I looked behind me. The line of flour around the bed was still broken near the footboard, the same two palm-like impressions. But now there was this. A single step inside the doorway. No matching print leading back out. I grabbed my phone and snapped a picture. The flash made the white powder glow harsh against the hardwood floor. I zoomed in. No smearing. No drag marks. Just one clean, deliberate impression. I turned slowly toward Lena. Her breathing had changed, faster now. Shallow. "Mark," she whispered, barely audible. "I see it," I said. "I see it." Her eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in months. Not confusion. Not vacancy. Recognition. "It comes when you sleep," she breathed. The room seemed to shrink around us. I hadn't slept in this bedroom for weeks. I'd been crashing on the couch, afraid of disturbing her machines. But 2 nights ago exhaustion won. I slept beside her. Deeply. Dreamlessly. And when I woke up that morning, her heart monitor had spiked for 3 straight minutes. Right around 3:17 a.m. I slowly turned my gaze toward the digital clock on her nightstand. 3:16 a.m. The hallway light flickered once, then went out again. The darkness didn't rush in. It settled. Like something patient. The bedroom light still hummed above us, but beyond the doorway the hallway was swallowed whole again. I didn't move to turn it back on this time, because something had shifted. The air felt heavier, not colder, not warmer. Just thick. Like before a storm when the sky holds its breath. Lena's fingers trembled in mine. "It waits," she whispered. Each word cost her. "When you close your eyes." My mind tried to grab onto logic. Electrical wiring. Stress hallucinations. Grief does strange things to people. I'd read enough late-night forums to know that. But grief doesn't leave footprints. I stepped carefully toward the doorway, avoiding the flower print. My pulse thudded in my ears. I leaned out just enough to see down the hallway. Empty. But the family photo at the far end, the one from our 10th anniversary, was crooked. It had always been straight. Lena obsessed over symmetry. I swallowed and walked toward it slowly. Each step felt like walking through syrup. Halfway down the hall, I smelled it again. Metallic. Closer now. When I reached the photo frame, my reflection stared back at me in the glass, pale, hollow-eyed. And just behind my shoulder, for a fraction of a second, there was a shadow that didn't belong to me. I spun around. Nothing. But from the bedroom, Lena screamed. Not loud. Not long. Just one sharp, terrified breath. And then silence. I ran. The hallway felt longer than it ever had. My socks slid against the hardwood as I nearly lost my balance turning into the bedroom. Lena. The machines were still on. The monitor still glowing green. But the bed was empty. Not tossed. Not disturbed like someone had struggled. Just empty. The sheets slightly indented where her body had been moments ago. My mind refused to process it. She hadn't walked in 3 months. Her foreline lay on the floor, disconnected but not torn. The wheelchair near the wall hadn't moved. The window was still locked. And the flower. The circle I had poured around the bed was no longer broken in 2 places. It was obliterated. Dragged through. Smeared in wide arcs across the floor, like something heavy had been pulled across it. My chest tightened so hard I thought I might black out. Then I heard it. From the far side of the house. A faint scrape. Like fabric brushing against drywall. I moved slowly this time. Not running. Listening. The sound came from the living room. The metallic smell was stronger now. When I stepped into the doorway I saw her. Lena was standing. Barefoot. Unsteady. Facing the front door. Her back to me. Her reflection faint in the glass pane. And beside her reflection, there was a second outline. Taller. Leaning close to her shoulder. But when I looked directly at her, she was alone. Her head tilted slightly. And in the glass I saw her lips move. It doesn't like the light. I didn't turn on the living room lights. Instead, I walked slowly to the wall switch and flipped off the bedroom light behind me. Darkness swallowed the house completely. For a moment, nothing moved. Then the metallic smell faded. Not instantly. Not dramatically. Just thinned. Like fog burning off under a rising sun. Lena swayed slightly in front of the door. Mark? Her voice was clearer now. Fragile but stronger than it had been all night. I'm here, I said, keeping my tone steady even though my hands were shaking. You're safe. She turned toward me, slowly, carefully, like someone relearning how to balance. Her eyes weren't fixed on the hallway anymore. They were focused on me. Really focused. The second outline in the glass was gone. Only our reflections remained. I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around her. She felt warm. Solid. Human. Her weight leaned into me, not being dragged, not suspended. Just standing. I couldn't move, she whispered into my chest. I could feel it watching. Waiting for you to sleep. I exhaled shakily. The flower. The broken line. The fear. Maybe it was never something in the house. Maybe it was the silence. The stillness. The space grief creates when you stop turning on lights. Inside rooms and inside yourself. I reached past her and flipped the porch light on. Outside, the night looked ordinary. Inside, so did we. And for the first time in 3 months, Lena took a step on her own.